These vintage lenses can still be bought for very cheap, and this is the cheapest one I've ever bought, and it cost me all of £5. Hey everybody, thank you for checking in once again, and I've got something really wonderful to show you today. It's something I bought the other day, and it shows that you can still buy vintage lenses at reasonable prices. The nice old kind of vintage lenses that make a really characterful and interesting sort of image. And the lens is this one. It's a very humble one, very ordinary, simple, humble sort of lens, as you'll see there. It's the Miranda something to something 35 to 70 f3.5 to f4.8. Right, so we've not gone to the usual 5.6 there, we've gone actually to 4.8. So in the land of kit zooms, this was slightly quicker than the rest. And this is just a very ordinary kit zoom. The Miranda lenses I've bought in the past, this is my third Miranda lens, and I've been very impressed with every one of them. They also seem to be in good condition. I don't know if it's something where they have been bought and not used very much. Maybe they've just been, you know, sitting in the back of drawers for years and years. I don't know. But all the Miranda lenses I've bought have been in excellent condition, and they all give really nice images, just like this one does. The focus controls at the front, it moves really smoothly, as you can tell because I keep twiddling with it. The zoom control is here in the middle, so we've got 35 there, 50 and 70. Yeah, 70 at the other end, and then we've got apertures adjustable by the ring at the back. It is a bit tricky when you've got the camera to your eye to find out whether you've got the focus ring, rather the zoom ring, or the aperture ring in your hand. That can be a bit confusing, so you do have to actually just check visually which one it is. But, you know, aside from minor inconveniences like that, this has been a very, very fine little lens. It was nothing special in its day. These were sold cheap by Dixons. I think Dixons bought the Miranda brand. It did used to be an independent brand, but Dixons bought it. Dixons were a high street electrical chain in the UK in the 70s, and they sold these on their cameras. So they were cheap in the day, and they're still cheap now, remarkably cheap. Some of the cheapest of the cheap, actually. I don't know who made this lens. It's a, you know, it's a little kind of potluck actually. Kit zooms and cheap lenses from the late 70s, early 80s. You never quite know who made them. They could be Cosina lenses. They could be, what's the other one that everybody loves? Tomioka lenses. They could be made by any number of manufacturers, so it's a little bit uncertain who actually made this. But whoever did it did a really nice job of it. This is a cheap kit zoom. It's slow, pretty slow anyway, kind of slow-ish. So what can we expect? What sort of results can we, and indeed should we expect? Should we expect them to be a bit rubbish? Maybe. Can we expect them to be a bit rubbish? Maybe again. Are they a bit rubbish? No, actually they're not. I think personally they're really, really nice, and I'll tell you why. What we get with this lens is a lens with warmth, with character, and with likability. This lens makes likable images. There's nothing not to like about the images from this lens. The colour's great, the contrast is great, the blur's great. It's got a little bit of CA, which we'll have a look at shortly, but personally I'm not too bothered about a tiny little bit of CA. The feel of the lens is nice, right? That's what's important with this lens. The feel of the images that it makes is nice. They may not be technically the absolutely the best, and I'm sure if you compare it with the best from Nikon or Canon or you know, some other big name manufacturer, then you could find faults. But looking at the images, they look nice. Right, so what can we say about it in detail? Colour. I really love the colour that this lens makes. I don't know if it's to do with the glass or the coatings. It's got a bluish coating on there, if you can see that, sort of yellowish, bluish coating on there. You can also see that it's in really nice condition as well. It's not been kept with a filter on it. You can see there's no filter on it, but it's still in really nice condition. So whoever has had this lens has certainly taken care of it and not used it too much. But yeah, the colours are lovely. They're vibrant. They've got loads of strength. They've got loads of oomph, which I'm pretty sure is a technical term. Do you know what I mean? They've got energy, they've got presence, they're there, they're not sort of weak, wishy-washy, washed out colours, but at the same time they are not oversaturated, they're just really nicely balanced. And it's neither too warm nor too cold. The colours from this lens are lovely. Sharpness is pretty good. Look, like any lens, it will get sharper as you stop it down, but it's a fairly slow lens anyway, right? This is a 3.5 to 4.8 at the long end lens, so it's pretty slow anyway. So the results you get from it wide open are pretty sharp. Close the lens down, it gets sharper, but I think this is a lens you can shoot wide open all day, and like a lot of lenses I shoot, actually, this one I did actually shoot wide open for most of these shots. So this is a lens that you need have no fear of it being too soft. Don't worry about it making sharp images. This will make images just as sharp as any other lens will. Contrast is good on this lens. It has great contrast. It's really got presence. It gives the images real presence. It gives them real dynamism. It's not over contrasty, but it's not weak and washed out. It's just about right, and I really like the level of contrast on this lens. Blur is really nice, and I do mean really nice, at both ends. At the short end, at the 35mm end, if you go close to your subject, this lens will give you some nice likeable blur, and it's not nasty blur. It's not blur that is going to turn on you at the wrong distance. It's not blur that's going to jar. It's not blur that's going to look harsh in the background. It's actually really, really nice. And it gives you plenty of it at the short end if you stay close to your subject. At the long end, you get more. Go closer to your subject. Obviously, you're shooting a long lens, you're going to get some more blur. That blur too is of a lovely, nice quality, and that's the nicest thing I can say. One of the nicest things I can say about this lens is the quality of the blur that it makes. It's just so nice. It's, what have I even written about it? I haven't even written anything about it. I've just written blur, but it is lovely. It's warm, it's friendly, it has the quality of a painting, actually, is what it does in certain shots. It will never turn harsh upon you, at least not in my use. It never becomes the kind of blur where you think, oh gosh, I wish I'd closed down the aperture there a bit. It's just really, really nice blur at both ends. Chromatic aberration, yeah, there is chromatic aberration with this lens at both ends. It's not optically perfect. It was a cheap lens and it's still a cheap lens, so it has a bit of CA. CA personally doesn't bother me. Why? Because I never go looking for it. I think it's the kind of thing that bothers you if you go looking for it. It's like if you get a tiny little imperfection on your car, a tiny little dent or a tiny little scratch or something. It only bothers you if you know about it. It only bothers you if it's on your mind. It only bothers you if you go looking for it. And it's the same, excuse me, it's the same with the chromatic aberration from this lens. It's only going to trouble you if you're the kind of photographer who goes looking for chromatic aberration and says, ah yes, this is a dreadful lens. I don't think it does make it a bad lens. I think it adds to its character. It's one of the flaws that we get in these old lenses because they were calculated by hand. That's one of the flaws we get in these old lenses, and it's one of the flaws we get in these cheap lenses. And those flaws give our images character. That's why we use vintage lenses. So I don't see why a bit of chromatic aberration should be automatically known as a bad thing. I think it can be included as part of the character of the lens. So the vintage lens game is not about technical perfection, whatever that is. You know, can anyone define even what technical perfection is on a lens? I'm not even sure that they can, but the vintage lens game is certainly not about that. It's about using old lenses calculated by hand with the flaws that brings and that make images look engaging and unusual. I'm sorry, I'm reading this stuff. This is me outrow and I'm reading it. It doesn't matter how much the lens costs. It doesn't matter how fancy it is. If it's a vintage lens, that is why we use it, for its imperfections, for its charming errors, for its charming and delightful flaws that make images look a bit different than those shot with a modern. Sometimes the flaws in lenses can work against each other to give an image that isn't so nice, but this one does the opposite. All the features of this lens work with it to give a surprisingly nice and likable lens that makes surprisingly nice and likable images. I'm going to keep this lens. This one is a keeper. You may be surprised to learn this humble little Miranda lens I have decided is a keeper. I've got two other Miranda lenses. One's a 50f2 and that's a lovely lens. And I've got another one, I think it's the 80 to 150 or 80 to 200. So 80 to something very long anyway. And they're all really nice. They're all in really nice condition. They've all hardly been used. And they all make fantastic images. So I'm going to keep them and I'm going to start a little collection of Miranda lenses because I really, really like them. And they represent some of the best value in vintage lenses that you can buy today. So I guess that's it from me for this time. Thank you very, very much for watching. Please do all those YouTubey type things. Like, subscribe, ring the bell, chuck us a sub if you can, and don't forget my new channel, Animal Smoking and Swearing, has new cartoons going up on it every week, if I can do it every week. That is, I've been able to do it up to now. So check that out as well. The link is in the description box below. Many, many, many thanks go to subscribers for all your support and for all your subscriptions, and many, many, many thanks go to patrons for all your very valued and continued support. And that is a genuine and heartfelt thanks to both subscribers and patrons. Thank you very, very much indeed, everybody. So that's it from me, and I guess if you're not doing anything too strenuous or involving next week at this time, check out some more xenography and I will be glad to see you. Hope to see you then. Cheerio, cheerio all. See you soon.